There are a lot of similarities between the field of medicine and the field of finance. When you go to a doctor, the assumption that the doctor makes is you want to be cured, which is a fair enough assumption, and the doctor knows best and he knows the exact procedure which is to be done to achieve that result. Unfortunately, over the past few years, what has happened in the field of medicine and in the field of consumer rights is there is some conflict now between what the doctor thinks he should be doing and what the doctor is told that by his advisors about what he should be doing with the client, right? So now not only is the doctor treating your illness and your symptoms, but he is also treating his own safety, and so therefore for everything he has to take consent, and that is fair enough, because you might seek a second opinion. You might then say I didn't understand, or your spouse might say, oh, if you had asked him he wouldn't have said yes, right? Any of these things could happen. So doctors take, first of all they take a broad consent saying is this okay, and then for every procedure also they take consent. In fact, I think there is a small book of about 125 pages on consent alone. How to seek consent, how to explain. For example, if I were a doctor today, I would obviously put a video consent and in a language which they are comfortable with, because if you take a signature of the patient in English and he could then come back and say I can't understand a word of English in the court, and you would look like an idiot. So if you're a doctor, it's a very, very, very important requirement that you take client's consent for literally everything. Maybe 50 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, consent was not so important, but now if you are going to be treated like a consumer, if your patient is going to be treated like a consumer and you are going to be treated like a supplier, you're much better off taking consent from them for every bit of action that you take, and also get diagnostic tests done for everything that you do. What does this do? It definitely raises costs of delivering medical care to you, right? It does it. Now cut this and come to finances. Does your client exactly understand what he wants, right? That is very, very important for IFA or a financial advisor to understand. So you have to sit with the client and ask him what he wants out of life, because 99% of the clients will not be able to articulate that. So if a 80-year-old person came to me and said I want higher returns, etc., I would actually ask him that, do you really have a purpose in life for earning money, or is it just because you have done it for the last 60-70 years or 65 years at least, you think the same thing should be happening? For example, if you find an 80-year-old who has got 4 crores and he's got annual expenses of rupees 5 lakhs, it doesn't really matter how you do his asset allocation, how you do his taxation, nothing matters. This money will last, this corpus will last another 20 years, because 20 years in absolute terms at 5 lakhs is about 1 crore. You add in inflation, it is 1.25 crore. So if he has 1.25 crores in debt, it is much more than sufficient than what he will ever require, immaterial of what happens to the equity markets. So you can put away all the balance, say 2.75 crores into equity without batting an eyelid, provided he wants to increase his net worth. Now that is another assumption which the doctors used to make earlier, that there is just one method, one way of doing it, and every client wants a cure. Now if that is not always true, then your solution has to be different. For example, my father was 89 when the doctor told me, a very good doctor, told me that, look, your father will definitely have breathing trouble. All the body parts are functioning at 40%, 30% kind of capacity. So the end will come. However, when the end comes, it will look like breathing trouble. It could be anything, any organ failure. But you will bring him here, and the minute you bring him here, we will have to do all the tests, whether sodium test or sodium deficiency. We will have to check for everything. That is my duty. It is up to you to decide that you can give him palliative care, keep oxygen at home, and keep monitoring his oxygen level. Believe me, the end was very peaceful. That when he died, my mother next to him didn't even know he had passed away early morning, right? So somewhere you have to take the advice and say, this is adequate, this is enough, this I don't need to do. So I have 5 crores, I am 80 years of age, I need only 5 lakhs a year. I need to say enough, now I will not chase, I will keep this money maybe even in a liquid fund or some money in an index fund or wherever, and I will live off it. All I need to know is how to withdraw with an ATM card or make all the payments online. Somebody does it for me and I'm done. I don't need to look at returns and chase returns. But not everybody does that so very nicely because they've got used to chasing returns. So you say 65 years of age or 67 years of age, you have adequate money for the rest of your life. Will people stop? Will they say enough? The question is, I don't know. But if a client says enough, will the financial advisor even understand? Will a financial advisor ever understand that a client can have enough? It doesn't happen because every branch, every relationship manager and every IFA wants to increase your returns. So I often get offers from brokers. I don't know how they get my number and say, will you do futures and options? And sometimes I keep the conversation going and I ask them, why should I do futures and options? So he says it can enhance your return. So I tell them, what if I don't want an enhanced return? What if I want to be, I'm fine with not increasing my wealth. I'm happy if I can continue this lifestyle for the next 15, 20 years, whatever I live. I just want wealth preservation, right? I'm not looking for. They just don't seem to understand how can there be a person who does not want his money to grow. But at some stage of life, you realize that yes, your money will anyway grow automatically in some of the equity that you hold or even in some of the debt that you hold. But that is not your primary concern. Your primary concern when you are young, which means I would put up below 50, 55, is you want growth. You want growth in your portfolio. 55 to 70, 75 is you want your portfolio to remain stable. You don't want too much of fluctuation because you now have more to lose, right? Earlier at 22, if there was an equity market fall, you should have rejoiced saying, anyway, I'm not invested, let me start investing. But at 75, you don't want you want to protect a lot portion of your money and say, I need to protect my portion, so maybe I put less money in a fluctuating asset like equity. Or I say, I anyway have enough money for myself in debt and therefore all the remaining money can be in equity. I continue to understand. But that is also a stage when you're not sure that you will be able to make the right choices. Should you sell Hindustan Lever and buy HDFC Bank? Should you sell HDFC Bank and buy Yes Bank? You don't perhaps have the ability to process such things. So maybe you put money in an annuity. Your views on life, your adequacy of money, all that changes. Maybe from 75 to end of life, you just want stability, solidity and ease of understanding. So it could be an annuity, one annuity plan, one index plan and bank deposits, nothing else. As simple as that, right? Because it's enough, it's adequate. You don't need to worry about what Biden is doing, what Trump is doing and what Nirmala Sitharaman will do in her budget. That does not bother you at all. You have enough. So you read that stage. So you have to keep changing your points of view. That is where goal-based investing helps. What are your goals? Redefine your goals, right? Have you taught your children how to manage the money if you are not there? Have you taught your spouse how to manage the money if you are not there? Those should be the challenges, not whether you get an extra 0.5% in an equity fund or a debt fund and things like that. Doesn't really matter. Yes, you can be more tax efficient by being in mutual funds instead of bank deposits. Basically, if some of those things are taken care of, that should be adequate because your goals have changed. So understand, it's like a doctor has to ask the patient what he wants. Doctor cannot take his own decision. So as an IFA, ask the client what he wants and explain, and as a client understand this. Thank you.